Hi, I want to ask a question today which gets to the heart of happiness, of well-being, at being at peace with your trajectory through life, let's say. And my question for you is pretty simple, really. So my question is, have you found yourself asking, is this it? You know, is this as good as it gets, as Jack Nicholson said? Where's my passion? Where's my mojo? Where am I heading? Or even worse, with a sort of a growing sense of panic, where am I heading? Or is that where I'm heading? Because I think a lot of people, and this certainly relates to me, don't necessarily ask themselves what it is that they want. Personally, I kind of thought that there were a whole series of stepping stones that I needed to go through in my life, starting from school and kind of going onwards, that would deliver to me what apparently society would kind of assume was good for me, and so must be good for me. And so I went through these stepping stones, and I remember having the point of, I was on my way to work and thinking, is this it? It is this supposed to make me happy? Because I thought it would, but I'd never asked myself the question. And this is so common. So frequently when I work with individuals in sessions, you know, people tend to come because they have a complaint. They have something which they are unsatisfied with. And one of the first things they do is ask them, okay, so what is it that you want? It's not much of an exaggeration to say 9 times out of 10, they tell you what they don't want. Okay, so what is it that you want? Well, I don't want this anymore, or I want less of this. And you can ask the question again, okay, so what is it that you want? And they'll repeat it. You might have to ask the question 4 or 5 times before the penny drops. And it's like, okay, so what do I want? What is it that I am going towards, not going away from? And sometimes that produces the kind of goldfish effect. It's like, because we get fixated on the problems. And the thing is, we're a goal-oriented brain. So if we think about problems, we tend to see problems everywhere. And if we're just intrinsically not really thinking too much about where it is that we want to go, well, then we're not really intrinsically looking for the opportunities to get ourselves there. So it's incredibly important to work out what it is that you want. But how do you do that? If if you relate to that question of, is this it? Is this supposed to make me happy? If so, where's my drive? Where's my passion? Where is my direction in life? If that is missing, personally, I don't think any amount of intellectualizing can bring that up. You the way to discover the joy inside of you, the sort of the innate happiness, not something which is a transitory, momentary thing, but a general sense of well-being, requires you to free yourself to the possibility to observe it, right? Which means that you need to have a certain sense of stability. In order to be creative, you need to be able to tolerate a bit more mess than your brain currently has. So if your brain is already all over the place, it's pretty hard to permit yourself an extra degree of messiness for the creativity to bubble through. But I think the best way is to permit yourself to play. Okay? So there's no linkage between creativity and intelligence. In fact, sometimes intelligence brings frustration, it brings rumination, it brings this kind of constant circular thinking, which is the opposite. It's the anathema of the creative mind, because the creative mind needs to be it needs to be playful. And it needs to be playful without a goal in mind. Just permitting yourself freedom to laugh, to go into a childlike state where, things don't seem to matter so much, that you're just in this moment in time permitting yourself to have fun. And what happens is you start, because your brain is really, really good, there are pattern recognition mechanisms going in the background, that when you play, when you notice what it is that you like and you dislike, well, that starts to percolate. It starts to make sense inside of you. So how do you get the clean mind? How do you permit yourself a state of stability so that it's all right to give yourself time to play, that it's all right to give yourself time to be creative, so that it's all right to free yourself to be yourself? Yeah. And this is where people go down the rabbit warren of, well, we need to meditate, we need to uh, do breathing exercises, all this kind of stuff, which has its place, but it is not number one. Okay, so number one is we are an organism. We are not a mechanism, and we're not simply a brain being transported by a body. So on that basis, the most important thing is your organism, and not your brain, the whole of your body. Okay, so sleep, eating well, exercise. Okay, people think of exercise as a way to make you look sexy, to make you look slim, to have rippling muscles. But I'm talking about basic exercise as a way to cleanse your mind, as a way to feel connected with yourself. It's a massive, massive benefit. I reckon your relationship with your body and having a good, well rested, well fed, you know, hormones and chemicals imbalance system is probably two-thirds, three-quarters of the whole story. It's only once that is in place that you can consider the other elements. Okay. So having done that, I would say probably the second element is still not, what you would consider to be mental health. It's your place in society. And how do you discover your place in society? Through your relationships with individuals, with other people. And so when you're well exercised, when you're well rested, when you're well fed, when your body is working, based around your age and your talents and your physiology and so on. I'm not saying you need to scream for the ceiling, but to be in a fit, well state, then the next thing is to tackle your relationships. And the way to do that is to communicate with other people. When someone is lacking in mojo, when they are questioning their place, their motivations, what it is to be happy, where they are heading. We're not quite into depression territory, but we're certainly on the cusp of questioning what it is to be an individual. There is a tendency to withdraw, to step back from society, to internalize, to introvert. And that detaches you further from society. So what I'm saying is that it's actually extremely useful to engage with society. It doesn't even matter if the people that you're engaging with, whether you get on with them or not. Even if you just meet someone that is unknown to you, or have a coffee or have a lunch or something, in a way, that individual represents all of humanity. It represents everybody. And so you're discovering things. Even if you have a closed mind when you go through that process, you can't fail to be affected by other people communicating, relating with you, and you relating with them. Once you kind of got those two in order, then you can start to tackle the self-learning, self-improvement aspects of mental hygiene let's say, the stoical, considered life, the meditation, the breathing exercises, the self-hypnosis. So does that make sense? Yeah, what I'm talking about here is your physiology is number one. It's by far and away the most important. If you're not sleeping well, if you're not eating well, if you're not using your body, well, then it's very, very hard for you to find a place in your mind where you can consider meditation, right? Because your brain is fizzing. There's too much going on, and it's kind of banging against itself. For me, possibly the most therapeutic thing I can possibly do is to go for a run. When I come back from a run, I am filled with ideas. I am filled with clean, hygienic, singular thoughts. It is an act of meditation in itself. And so I've got a notepad by the door. So I come in and I scribble things down straight away because it's a way of freeing myself from the day-to-day chatter, and all of this extraordinary creativity comes up in that process. So if you can get to that point, okay, so you're on level 3, you are into self-discovery, self-learning, self-questioning. What do you do at that point? And there are many, many different ways that you can do this. One of the ones that personally I find very useful is to look at your core needs and your core values. When are the times that you feel a sense of injustice, where something isn't fair? Because that is a huge pointer towards one of your core values. When are the times when you feel at home, when you just feel like you? Because that is a pointer to you being in alignment with your values. And as you're doing this, accept the fact that there's a monkey on your shoulder, a sort of an innate pessimist, an innate risk manager, who's probably giving you a sort of a story which it thinks is protective of don't try that because you might fail, or that'll never work for you, or something like that. It's just your internal self-preservation mechanism. Just permit it to be. You can't kill it. You can't get rid of it. It's just part of you. But I think it's important to place that part of you into perspective so that you can permit yourself to play, so that you can free yourself to just go with something which is new. Because the way that you discover if this is it and what this is and where your direction lies is by doing different things, permitting yourself to do different things and discovering new things as a result. Now, let's talk about man's search for meaning. Let's talk about Viktor Frankl. Let's talk about Edith Eger and the choice. Let's talk about our sense of our own thoughts, our perceptions of what is right, wrong, good, bad, safe, risky. Okay? If you haven't read Man's Search for Meaning, it's an extraordinary explanation of how we bring meaning, we choose meaning, and we label our experiences by it. And obviously that book, well, I shouldn't say obviously if you haven't read it, but that book is about his experiences in concentration camps where many, many people would literally lose the will to live. And he discovered meaning in the most horrific experiences. He found ways to harness the power of his mind that got him through those experiences. And the book is an extraordinary way of explaining how you, me, anybody can learn from what he came to understand to actually find a sense of meaning, a sense even of joy, of relevance, of power in circumstances that it would be very, very easy to label in another way. And the reason why this is so important is because we are constantly labeling our experience. So the experience in itself is neutral. The thoughts that we have, difficult though it might be to chew on at the first moment, those thoughts are neutral. What is not neutral is the label that we attach to them. And it is the label that defines whether we are having a satisfactory experience or not. So this is supremely important. Okay, so it's not the thought itself, it's our perception of that. It's the way that we interpret that that drives whether we think we're having a good time or a bad time. And that perception, much of the time, is based upon our expectations. So if we're expecting to have an exciting time, we tend to notice things and label them accordingly. If we're expecting to have a rotten time, we tend to notice things and equally label them accordingly. And so there is a storytelling mechanism inside of our head which is impacting upon a set of experiences which, whether, from a purely robotic point of view, you might be able to consider being, I don't know, good, bad, or fun or not fun. It is the meaning-making machine inside of us that is defining whether or not we like that, we're satisfied with that, whether that is good, bad, painful, and so on. And that perception is totally fluid. So you can very, very easily find a massive opportunity for self-improvement in a really rotten situation, as a simple example. Okay. So there's lots of ways of considering what it is about this question inside of you of, well, is this it? Shouldn't I be happier than this? Where is my drive, my passion, my direction? Am I just heading on my way to retirement? Am I just basically here for death and taxes? What am I going to do with this moment, which is never coming again? And the risk manager that sat on your shoulder is trying as hard as he can to get you to continue doing what you did yesterday, because that's predictable. One of the driving forces is to maintain consistent with how we were yesterday. Because if we do something different, if we think something different, or God forbid, if we say something different, well, then people are going to judge us for that. And that's risky. That risks ostracization. Yeah, it risks being sent into exile by the people that we hold dear, that become part of our safety net. So it's a scary thing to step outside of that. But this risk manager, he's based around the stories which we have come to conclude we are today. So the risk manager is part of the system that we're questioning. So it's okay to have the risk manager, but you have to accept that he is trapped within the system of the stories of everything that we have come to learn that we are in this moment, that we are trying to kick against somehow without rocking the boat too much. So where do you come out of all of that? A, look after yourself. So you get your basic physiological, chemical balance in order. 2, get out and meet other people. Relate with other people. And then 3, relate with yourself. What is it that I cannot not do? I love that question. What is it that I cannot not do? When am I strong? I'm strong when I do X, Y, Z. Or even more importantly, I'm strong because. Attach a set of empowering meaning to your sense of self. Play, brainstorm. Imagine your perfect day. Imagine waking up in the morning at the time which is perfect for you, thinking what you think when you wake up, getting out of bed, having the breakfast that you want, meeting the people that you want, doing the activities that you want, going to the places that you want. Imagine the sky's the limit. There is nothing to stop you. Okay? It's a massive pointer towards what is important to you, but you can also use it as a way to take baby steps. Okay, so this is a crazy, crazy story of what is potentially my dream day. Okay, but is it possible? If you were to give yourself a month or two, could you put the entire thing into action? If so, do it. Even if it's not possible, even if it's complete blue sky thinking, are there elements of it that you could use tomorrow, today? Because what you're doing is giving yourself permission to free yourself to go in the direction that might feel more like you. To discover the path of least resistance might be another way to describe it. To allow yourself to exist more fully inside your skin. To relate with everything around you. And to be open-minded enough to do something different, no matter how small, and to see how that pans out. Because when you free your mind to play, to be creative, whatever that means to you, to discover, you end up discovering when and where you are in alignment with those things which are most important to you. You know, the reason why it's useful to consider those moments of injustice or those moments of flow is that you can then start to take a good, hard, cold look at your life, at the aspects of your life, and see which ones are in alignment with that and which ones are way off kilter, you know? So you might want to look at your relationships, at your work, at your playtime, at your family situation, at the key individuals in your life, and a thousand other things. And consider whether you are in alignment with your values, with your core needs in each of those segments, those areas of life. And you'll probably find, most people find, that some of them you're really, really in alignment with, and others you're not. When you're doing all of this, what you're doing is you are giving your intuition a bit of a encouragement. You're giving it a space to speak to you. Now, what I call intuition, you might want to call your subconscious. Okay. But for me, what's most important about it is that it is a voice which speaks fairly quietly. It's a voice that when it comes up, your chattering mind instantly feels the need to edit it. If you notice that, that's gold dust. So when you permit yourself, when you free your mind to discover the things that are not immediately in front of your nose, with a sense of curiosity, with a sense of play, with no particular goal in mind, but just an open-minded freedom, that's where your mojo comes from. That's where you discover inner, deep meaning. That's where you find the hooks that you can hang your sense of reality upon. That's where you find the methods and the mechanisms by which you can relate to other people. And from all of that comes this massive sense of self-security, of, I don't know, inner wisdom, maybe you want to call it, of serenity, of peace, but also of power, because you know where your compass lies. And so you can go forward in directions which are slightly unfamiliar but feel important. Knowing that you can trust yourself, knowing that this intuition, that this voice, no matter how quiet, is there and is available to be listened to. So then you have your intellect and you have your intuition, and you can bring them both to bear in different circumstances. And so that you end up with a truly, truly course correcting, creative existence. That's where you find your direction, because you start to understand yourself. You understand what you like, what you don't like, the environment in which you flourish, the environment in which you don't flourish, the type of people that you need to interact with to feel at home, the type of thoughts you like to think in order to feel at home inside of yourself, the type of actions that you like to take to feel like you. And that doesn't mean that everything suddenly becomes perfect. It doesn't mean that suddenly you throw away your goals, your responsibilities, your kind of material necessity. But it means that when you've got your bedrock in place, when you've got a certain level of stability and everything else is available to be played with, well, you know where to go. And so you can push against your boundaries. You can start to see what it is to be a happy you. That's incredibly freeing. It's internally beautiful, if that makes sense. I hope that's useful. Yeah. Thanks for watching. If it is, go check out the other videos. There's a whole series of things, and they're not all as existential as this, but I think this is an important one, because there is this certain time when it's like, wow, is this it? Where am I heading? All right. Thank you very much for watching. Cheers. Bye.